Welcome to the Didi Lital Show. Advice, thoughts, and stories from a married couple on cybersecurity, technology, and life in general. Now here are your hosts, Didi and Lital.
Hello and welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. Recording from home and Didi with skiing background, even though it's humid and like 80 degrees outside.
I can change the background, but I'm too lazy to do it. It's better than the vacant wall that is behind me. We need to put a mural here on my background, on the tilted wall in my office.
Take care of that.
Yeah.
Let's bring a mural artist to do that on your wall.
No, you can just buy those. Right now, you can just buy them and tape them on the wall.
A sticker.
Yeah. Big ass sticker.
Let's do that. Well, big week last week in sports.
Yes, very big week last week in sports. So Celtics won the cup. They walked through the cup. Kyrie Irving.
Frightening game, right?
After choking game 4, Kyrie Irving choked every other game. So that's now they're back. Now they have a championship. There was a parade. Everything was awesome. But in the meantime, more important, in a real sport, not city basketball, the Oilers have pulled
Beating the Panthers.
beat the Panthers in three straight games.
So now
and have dragged them back to Alberta and beat them there. And today is game 7, where everything can happen.
The deciding game, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And this is like the whole hopes of Canada, because a Canadian team has not won the cup since 93. So
Good for them. Comeback.
yeah. And another important thing in sports news is the Copa America has been playing. There's also the Euro, but who cares about the Euro? It's a bunch of wussies basically falling on themselves. But the Copa America has been playing, and Uruguay beat Panama last night. So I'm giving the shout out to Nico. And the US, I think, won as well. And I'm wearing my Shorsey shirt because Shorsey is back for a 3rd season. And I already binged the whole thing because it's very, very bingeable. You start and it's like watching a car accident and you just can't stop. So if anybody follows Shorsey, Shorsey's back. And I'm wearing the Bulldogs. Did you have a chance to catch it, Dave, or not?
I haven't watched yet. I was very excited to see it pop up on my feed. And I can't. Did they post the whole season? Can you binge the whole season? They did.
They posted the whole season.
Yeah.
You can binge it.
Yes.
Summer binge.
I was planning to binge it on the flights, but I couldn't help myself. So done.
I would quote from the show, but it's not really family friendly. Most of the stuff they say on short.
Which part? The tug on your balls?
Yeah, that part. Give your balls a tug. Yeah. The chirping. It's majorly, it's advanced hockey chirping is what it is, right?
Yes. There's a part there that he really, really excels. There's like, you have to see the show. There's a part there that's just you can't stop laughing.
It's really great writing. Jared Keesow's a genius.
Yes.
Another note. I want to jump and just say how exciting the world of podcast has become. This is a podcast that I follow. I think most of us follow. Everybody in tech, the All In podcast. Basically, 4 venture capitalists, Silicon Valley dudes having fun, talking about life and tech. Awesome podcast, really one of the best. And to show how much mainstream they have become, They ran an interview with Donald Trump for a full hour this week, and was really good. I have to say, even if you're not a Trump supporter, and even more, if you're not a Trump supporter, just go listen, because podcasts give you kind of a view that traditional media doesn't. They're inviting Joe Biden to talk there too. I don't think he's going to take the opportunity to do it. If he does, good for him, kudos. But I just want to say, if anyone wants to come on our podcast, we'll be happy to host any politician. So I wish that's a plan. But just, it's exciting how mainstream podcast has become. We're really excited to be part of it. I'm not putting myself together with the legends of which are really legendary, of the All In podcast, but kudos. It just shows how much people want to listen and learn from people like them, instead of, listening to the BS brainwashing that doesn't give you the truth of traditional media. So that's.
I think it's less about the BS and brainwashing. I think it's more the fact that people just want consumable content without being talked to.
You want to listen to what people are actually saying, and not to short clips taken with some indoctrination. That's my view.
Yeah.
I stopped listening to traditional media. I follow podcasts that I like, and I just, make my own judgments. So check it out. It's just interesting. I think sports is now shifting into politics time. There's going to be a debate this week. So
I'll take us back into comedy.
Let's do comedy.
As I am an old Jew,
today.
As I am an old Jew, old Jews become Woody Allen, whether they want it or not. It is a known thing. And Woody Allen has a very famous saying that whoever thinks that the most beautiful phrase in English is "I love you" has never heard "it is benign." And as I am old and fat and very inclined to cancer in our family, I did an MRI, which, by the way, is the most claustrophobic thing ever. And last time I even got an asthma break in one of those, so it was even more claustrophobic this time around. But yes, it's clear and everything is awesome. But when I posted this on our friends feed, somebody said to me, well, there's something even better. And I said, what is it? And he says, well, you read in the Slack, well, they got the password, but MFA saved the day. And this is the theme of this session, of this podcast. I'm
following the last two episodes about identity, the history of identity, the identity stack. We're coming for where we are today to talk about what's good for you, what do you need to consider, and basically why MFA are saving the day. And we can talk about that. So recently, many recent attacks, the bottom line was whomever had an MFA, no matter that the attackers had the credentials and stole it, it protected them from coming in. So good news for CISOs. If you have MFA, that's good news. The problem is not everyone has MFA everywhere. And let's not forget, MFA, not all of MFAs are equally designed, equally secured. Want to take us through, Didi?
Sure. I think what I want to go through is the common reasons to resist MFA and why people are resisting MFA, and how to detect certain types of resistance that indicates bad behavior. And I'll start with the simplest example. You'll hear people talking about not wanting to put in stuff on their phone, especially the Euro minis, and you'll hear a lot of people resisting putting any factor that tracks them and tracks their behavior and does things that they feel paranoid about work. So let's start with the law. If I give you a device, like a laptop, even in Euro privacy land, it's my device. I own it, and I can put whatever I want on it. And I can define a policy that says you can only work from this device, and passkeys and things like that do not track anything related to human behavior. So that resistance of you're tracking me, you're following me, feel very confident of saying, you know what? You want to read email? You have to have something on your phone. Don't want to read email? Don't put anything on your phone. But this is the duality. People will say,
I want to have access to corporate applications, to corporate federated email,
yeah,
Slack, or anything on a specific device. That means that at least this device needs to be protected in some
exactly.
form with MFA. So if
And with additional
you
factors.
don't want to access email from the cell phone, that's legit. Do it on your corporate laptop,
Exactly.
which needs to be protected. And we'll talk about what's good protection in a second. So that's
But Lital,
is,
I do want to point one more else thing about this. Whenever you feel this resistance about, I don't want to put anything on my phone, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, and then people want to use things like SMS. Track if the credentials are being shared. Because most of the time, that resistance actually comes from a really bad behavior of credential sharing. It got to the point that
the emails with somebody
so
else.
in almost every big organization, you'll see that delegation is either not enabled in the old applications, or people are just too lazy to turn them on, to turn delegation on.
So a manager will give the admin access to calendar instead of doing it through the app in the right way when she has her own credentials. It will be through giving the password.
Yes, and it's really easy to share a phone with SMS. It's a lot harder to share real tokens and real phishing resistant factors. So credential sharing is very, very prevalent and very, very common, and is one of the biggest resistance to introduction of phishing resistant MFA. So what I recommend is before you do this, track credential sharing and see, and then you'll be able to actually have an effective argument with the policymakers, because you'll say, hey, all these people that are resisting, they're not resisting because of all the reasons that they're saying. They're resisting because of the reasons that they're not saying. The fact that they're credential sharing, doing all the things that we actually want to put MFA to stop. The best example, in a call center once, we came in when I was still at RSA, and there was a token taped to the wall. There was another one that there was a token that had a camera on it and was shared through like a Zoom session that everybody could see the token. So basically everybody was sharing the token, doing everything against basically what the token was invented for, because people want to be able to do credential sharing. And you'll see this very common with leaders and admins, leaders with support, leaders with family members, and in call centers and wherever there's a high velocity of change of individuals. And both of these cases, note, are the more common cases of credential loss. So these are the things that you actually want to stop.
You want to have your MFA being device bound to the person actually using it, and not having it floating around like SMS and things that are stealable. You want credentials to be something that cannot be shared and cannot then be stolen. Everything that can be shared is easily stolen. That's the reality. Even if encrypted, even if salted, and whatever you call it, hashed, you need to have things that are not stealable, shareable, just ingrained in your device. That's those phish resistance, MFA, that we were talking about. That's the big difference. If a thing is sending you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a text message, that's easily can be hijacked. We've seen it again and again. That will not save the day. That's not the MFA that will save you the day, because your IT people will be fooled with somebody that has already the first factor calling them, asking them to reset your MFA and send it to the device. There's so many different ways that we've seen. You know it better, Didi. MFA bombing and all those kind of things. MFA flooding, man in the middle, man in the browser. There's so many other things that, people.
So, Lital, I think now you're confusing a couple of things. MFA bombing is for the push.
Yeah.
While SMS is targeted usually for sharing. It's somebody texts and say, hey, can you give me, I'm your IT, can you give me the text? But right now, in most parts of the world, the infrastructure for SMS, most people, think of SMS or anything in the phone system as it's like magic that happens through the wires. Dennis, Mike, and I yesterday met for drinks, and we were talking about the fact that people don't understand how software works. It was a very fun theme because it was also the theme of yesterday's dinner when Don and friends came over, because a lot of our generation still coded in C and understand how the computer works. And some of us, like you, that have worked in the intelligence bureaus, knows how vulnerable the telephony infrastructure is. The telephony infrastructure is built to be listened to. It's built to be listened to. By design, Ericsson, all those carriers have to comply with a whole bunch of standards that allow law enforcement to listen into your traffic. There's ETSI, there's Kalea, there's a whole bunch of these standards that allow you to intercept. And now think of the fact that I'm a big company like a Verizon, and I connect to a third-party vendor. And by the way, this is another part, that SMS packages cost money. And if I need to route them through a whole bunch of stuff, I'll go through the cheapest vendor possible. So the Twilios of the world will go through. You'll never understand how they go through and what carriers they use. And you don't know how reliable that carrier is. So you're basically using an infrastructure that is born to be listened to, because all law enforcement made sure that you can listen in and intercept. And you're using an infrastructure that was built by the lowest bidder and provider to give you the packages.
And it's well known that many of those providers were already hacked by nation states, and that even some criminal gangs have no access to them. So it's just
you say hacked, I say bought. Very much like the fact that the FBI once operated this ring basically to allow criminals privacy, and the FBI operated it. Sometimes criminals, especially in certain countries, they will operate the cheap SMS network so they can have your MFAs and they can have your devices and they can listen into your calls. So by definition, they own the network. So because we think of our world, but we don't understand how things work in a global way. And the fact that you're a member in the network allows you to do a whole bunch of things that very compromise your privacy. So in the short version, telephony is really nice. I don't use it. I use it to carry my packets, and I call people on WhatsApp and encrypted media. And very much like they had that commercial about the fact that you don't send your mail over pigeon. You want an encrypted, secure way. WhatsApp had a very cool commercial about this. I'll add it to the meeting notes, and I'll show you this. And this is kind of where my mind's at. So you need to do something that's
WhatsApp better than you trust telephony.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I try. Listen, Zuckerberg already listens to everything I have to say, in so many other ways. So
Yeah.
he has other ways to sell my data and other places to sell my data.
Sure.
But going back to our main point, telephony as a media is a problem. Using that as a way to protect your credentials is not very, very effective. And right now, there's so many other ways that are built into our phones and our devices. Like Apple gives you the passkeys, Google gives you the passkeys, Microsoft gives you the passkeys.
Basically, every modern device has it. Most of them have already biometrics built in, right? Laptops have it. Modern laptops will have a bunch of biometrics as well.
And don't forget, if all else fails, there's this company in Bedford, Massachusetts that still sells tokens. That shit is reliable. And there are use cases, especially with ephemeral workers, especially with people that would like to do whatever they want on their privacy. They want to keep everything separate. They are working on OS2 devices. They're working on hardened things. They work on ephemeral machines. The token is your friend. And if you don't want to use
user experience, and you would rather use your modern device with the biometrics, but if not, that's a great fallback. And if you don't mind the user experience, absolutely.
It's an awesome user experience. If anybody tells me that typing in 6 digits or 8 digits once a day is a problem, I don't buy it.
I think that there is also the logistic nightmare for companies to distribute them. We've been talking with a lot of companies. Everybody prefers to get off those hardware tokens just because what happens when it's lost, how complex it is to ship it to a workforce that never gets to an office and doesn't even have an office miles away. So there's an issue. But yes, absolutely, still an option.
Yeah, but that is true for all the devices, because when doesn't matter what device you're using, there's the problem of the root of trust.
Right. And we've been talking about that. What would be a great way of solving it in the future if people use clear stations and things like that to maybe the first time you onboard a new employee to your work. But going back to a topic, Didi, I want to make sure we kind of cover what people need to think today when they're thinking of the identity stack, depending on what company they are, size, industry, security needs. What do they need to have in place? What's the minimal viable stack for them versus what's the advanced thing based on the history and the stack we discussed in the last 2 episodes?
Yes. So first, I'll start by, as somebody that works for Cisco and network access pays my rent, pays for everything that is around us, And while I really, really, really love network access, and I think because a lot of what you and I are talking about came from my conversation with Gabi, and basically he said, "Yeah, I have VPN, so I don't need SSO." So, dude, you got it backwards. You really got it backwards. So network access is awesome and really important, and I think it's one of a key component of your security. But that's not where I start. So I believe, and this is something that people confuse when we think of the identity stack. They confuse directory with SSO. SSO and directory have been united by the vendors, but are not very linked.
Okay.
And
Explain.
I would think.
Explain.
So what SSO does, and we explained a little bit in the previous episode, but what the SSO broker does, it talks to all my applications, it brings them in, and uses one of two protocols, SAML or OpenID Connect, to allow me to build a session to this application. So the application basically says, you know what? I don't want to build my own user database. I talk to a controller. The controller gives me back and tells me, does Lital allowed to come in? I don't want to know who Lital is. I don't want to control her factors. I don't want to control her sessions. I talk to Okta. I talk to Duo. I talk to Microsoft. I talk to Google or AWS and come in. And even as a small company, you want to consider using a robust single sign-on solution. And when I talk about robust, you want the base first index of control is how many applications they have in their cloud-based applications that they have in their database, how easy it is.
You want to consider the coverage of applications that would be right for your organization.
Correct. And the second thing you would care is how well they are versed in the ecosystem in terms of factor control. So can they support modern factors? Can they support factor lifecycle? And do they connect actually to the next steps of what you want to think about? And surprisingly, by the way, this is really, really funny. A lot of companies that we talk to start with AWS Cognito because they say we run on AWS, we'll use Cognito as our SSO. They are very thin on their number of applications. They're not competing in this space. They just care about solving SSO inside of AWS, inside their.
It's good for the first few developers in a startup that all they do is that, but the minute you bring a sales rep and you need to bring Salesforce, that's not covered already.
No, it's even worse. Even for developers, all Cognito was built for is AWS buys companies. QuickSight is an acquisition. A few others are acquisitions. They needed to federate.
Igniting the internal stack.
They're solving for their internal problems that they're making you use a tool to solve the problems that they created for you.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is don't use the things that come from the providers. Don't use the Microsoft one. Don't use the Google one. Don't use the Amazon one, mainly because they're mainly built to solve their own problems, not to solve the world's problems. So start with one of the independent ones. And those
with a shameless plugin that we launched one a few weeks ago. And if you're interested to check a good alternative to Okta, talk to us.
Yep. So that's Okta Duo Beyond. And also consider it to think if you need an amalgamation of your SIAM solution, your consumer, because even in your consumer space, you don't want to build a consumer database. So look for something that federates well. And that's the other part. So you need to be able to think of. So my first recommendation is don't skimp. Buy an SSO solution. You know what the number one resistance, though, for SSO solutions? And this is where we're...
Price, maybe?
Yes, it's the SSO tax. This is the main reason people resist it. It's the SSO tax.
Yeah. It's basically a lot. I mean, there are two things. SSOs tend to be expensive and they scale really fast. The price, once the number of users go up, also the pricing go up quite steeply. So that's one. And second one, some major applications charge you more money for the version that connects with SSO that has SAML in it.
Yeah.
So
The worst proprietors are HubSpot and Atlassian.
yes,
These are the worst.
they make you go enterprise to be able to connect to MFA SSO, and that sucks because startups don't need any other feature of the enterprise stack that those companies offer. All they need is the basic features plus security. Security should be built into all offerings of companies.
Now, the reasoning, this is an important thing to think of the reasoning for this. Did Lital freeze or did I freeze?
No,
Okay.
are we frozen?
You were frozen for a sec.
Okay.
So the reason for this, by the way, originally made sense. The reasoning was that when companies try to connect their SSO, it used to be that you always had to go through support. You always cost the company money, the integrating vendor, a lot of money. But remember what we started with, the application libraries. Most of this has been solved by application libraries. Also, there's a little bit of, let's call it business scamming. So, for example, when you talk about HubSpot specifically, you'll see that if you do Google SSO, you're still at the low tier. But you want to bring in Okta, you pay a lot. Same goes for Atlassian. Same goes for Salesforce. A lot of them have built-in discount if you come with a Google directory.
Why is that?
Business reasons. Somebody had a conversation with them and gave them a discount. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way.
Google gave them cloud discounts or discounts on the Google suite of products to get that.
And sometimes somebody said, you know what? Startups do log in with Google.
They do.
Let's put the login with Google button, and we'll catch new customers this way. Because somebody in the pricing model thought that, you know what, this allows us to build PLG. And you'll see, by the way, that most of the times it's also login with Microsoft. You'll see login with Microsoft, login with Google.
Yeah.
But if you want to set up Okta or another vendor, that will cost money.
Okay. So we're saying no matter your size, no matter what, start with SSO.
Before you do network access, before you do anything else, because it will allow you, remember the credential sharing problems that we said? A lot of companies put themselves in a bind because they do credential sharing after you pass the bastion host.
Yeah.
Almost every place that will deal with privileged access management and deal with privileged access control will think of it as network access. And then after the first hop, they'll now open up their world to give everybody access. So I would start with SSO first, and preferably an SSO that does a little bit of privileged access management capabilities in it. And afterwards, even if I have an ops team of 4 people, use a privileged access management tool.
Okay.
So
Do you
something
need like a CyberArk? Like what do
No.
you, how?
Live CyberArk, the
We-
CyberArk is not a lightweight tool.
Exactly. So what would you go with?
So the tools like
just in time privilege
Yeah.
access.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of tools that have just-in-time access. Strong DM is one. Teleport is one. There's a whole bunch of them that are out there, and I would consider using them from day one because you want to be able to know who accessed what server and what point in time, and you want to be able to separate that admin access from the not admin access. You can also set it up with tools like Okta and Duo and through the workflow tools. So it is possible to do that. It's not a big lift, but
It's
separate.
not automated.
It's not automated, but separate those two controls. So I would start with SSO, then privilege access management, and only then will I think of network access. Network access is when you have resources that you really, there's people have this thing in their back of their mind that if I protect something with IP restriction, it's actually protected.
VPN saves the day. No, it's not.
VPN is very good for applications that were never built to be open to the world. If you put an application on the internet with an available IP, within 5 minutes, somebody will try to guess the password. Somebody will try to start hacking at the password 5 minutes after the IP is available. This is the current world that you live in. And if you want to understand that metaphor really, really well, the next book after Three Body Problem, it's called The Dark Forest. And it kind of explains how the internet mindset is. It's basically the best way to save yourself is not be known. So that's kind of a way, but in reality, hiding, you'll always eventually be discovered. And that's what VPN does. It doesn't actually protect you, it just hides you.
Okay. So what's up next? You go network. Anything else you need to add on top of the 7 point?
Yes, you do want to, once you cross the 100-person boundary.
100% is pretty fast, but okay.
Well, this is the thing that people need to plan for. So we said, if you start with SSO, even if you're a 6-person company.
Yeah.
You want to consider PAN as soon as your ops team goes beyond a certain size, and that really depends on what application you're building. If you are very SRE ops heavy, privilege access management, you need to do really, really fast. You do need to consider network access control once you actually need to have things that are detached from the network. They're things that were always built to be this way. You want to be able to do a multi-hop. And it's really prevalent when you're doing manufacturing and things like that. And even when you get to 100 people, you want to consider some level of identity governance. And the easiest rule of thumb is if you're in charge of passwords and password resets, and you don't know the person that's calling you, you need to move to IGA. And IGA, the classic, the 100-pound gorilla and the 800-pound gorilla is SailPoint, but don't. There's enough tools out there that are built to do this. Our friend Alex that was here and from Conductor One, really good example of that one. Deepak, that used to be Dennis's boss that was here, also has a nice company that does this. There's a lot of lightweight IGA companies. Their cost is marginal, and they'll automate your joiner, mover, lever problem. And you want to automate this. Right now, in our size of team of 20, Anton is meeting me at 9:30 to talk about the fact that we want to be able to automate the onboarding and offboarding of people, because we don't know if we want to give support people access, if we want to give product management access. once you go to 50 people on your GitHub, we want to be able to automate the seats there because those seats cost money. So that's kind of my recommendation for the day. I think we're close to time.
Close to time. So with that, I hope we gave like good advice to people considering the roadmap with the identity stack. David, bring us to the outro. Thank you for listening to us. The Didi and Lital Show is a weekly podcast. Please rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. We'll be here again next week. See you. Choose well your identity stack.
Right.
Mm.